Well, the 23rd Regiment United States Colored Troops is just a living history organization to honor the actual 23rd Regiment United States Colored Troops, who were the first African American soldiers to fight against the Army of Northern Virginia. And that battle will take place in part of the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse. On May 15th, 1864, the 23rd was asked to come to the assistance of the 2nd Ohio Cavalry. And the 23rd will double quick 2 miles from the Chancellorsville ruins and form a battle line and drive away the Confederate cavalry. The 2nd Ohio is going to cheer them because they did not think these black soldiers would fight against their former masters. And when they do fight, they tell the other white soldiers that the 23rd and the black soldiers will fight for their own freedom.
And that was such a huge part, really a turning point in some ways in the war and how things were looked at.
It was, prior to that, the 54th Massachusetts had made the scene first because they were on a large stage, whereas the 23rd was made up of slaves and escaped slaves and, freed slaves. And the 54th was mainly educated men from all across the North. And these men in the 23rd were actually from the South, and they were fighting against some of their masters. In fact, when they fight at the Battle of the Crater, one of the soldiers was actually taken prisoner because his owner was there, and his owner took possession of him again and sold him further south.
That May battle is there's a sign that you've got right near the battle where people can see that.
Right. On May 17, 2014, we had the unveiling of our state marker, the Virginia state marker, that recognizes and commemorates the 23rd skirmish on May 15, 1864. Now, we had a big celebration on May 17, 2014, where we had Voice of America there, and also at the Chancellorsville Battlefield Visitor Center. They opened or reopened it after the reconstruction of that museum, and they have an exhibit for the 23rd. So first thing in the morning, we had to be there so we could be honored with the opening of the museum. Then we had the program. Voice of America was there. John Hennessy gave a talk about the United States Colored Troops. And then we had the commemorative march where the community joined in, and we marched to the Heflin family farm right at Catharpin and Old Plank Road. That's where they actually fought. And they allowed us to have a ceremony there. So we had the ceremony there. And after that, we went to the John J Wright Museum where we had a reception for the participants and the community.
Speaking of the John J Wright Museum, you've got another activity planned for this Saturday.
Right. On October 8th, from 12 to 2, we will have the Few, the Brave, the 23rd United States Colored Troops Forum. And during this forum, we're going to have Dr. James K. Bryant II, who is going to write the book about the 23rd Regiment. And he is going to give some information about what he's researching now, and he's also talked to the descendants of the 23rd. We will also have a director's cut premiere showing of the movie that we made, The Spy Within, with the director, Mr. Luigi Benedetto. So he will show his director's cut there as well. So we're looking for a very good event.
Hashmil Turner, this is a big weekend event for people, and if someone's looking for something to do, this is something to consider, to spending a little bit of time on Saturday to participate in.
Yes, I would encourage them to come out and learn some history. This is an untold story that we try to tell, because back in the Civil War, we played such a positive role in the winning of the war. And I went to school here in Virginia for 12 years, and I never heard of any black soldiers participating in the Civil War wearing the Union uniform. So in 1989, when the movie Glory came out and I saw this, it definitely quickened my mindset to look into it and take some interest to find out just what history there was. And so when the co-founders Stuart Henderson and John Cummins decided to rebirth the 23rd, I was the first recruit to come on board, and I took a great interest in it, and I wanted to tell this untold story because I felt that the people in this area needed to know, because many of the soldiers came from the surrounding counties and even some from the city of Fredericksburg. So I thought it was important that this story be told, so I got involved.
Now, and I too had never heard any of this until really your group started to do these reenactments and to be in uniform like you are today.
Mm-hmm. And that's so true because for some reason it was just kept a secret. And so now that that we are aware, we want the story to get out there and people to understand the contributions that the African American soldiers contributed to the freedom of the enslaved people.
And actually, the movie The Spy Within is being showed at the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C. And that museum honors the whole 209,145 members of the United States Colored Troops, which includes the 7,000 white officers and the 1,145 Hispanics, along with 201,000 blacks.
Ed, what excites you about what's going to happen on Saturday?
The opportunity to learn. Now, I'm a relatively new recruit compared to the distinguished gentleman here to my left.
But he's the current president, so.
Figurehead. But every weekend that I participate in an event like the one that's coming up on Saturday, or last weekend we were up at a Civil War fort in Alexandria. There is so much more that I learned that I had no idea that was part of the complete story of the Civil War, and in particular the African American contribution to the Civil War. Just the number, the 209,000 members in the U.S. Colored Troops under the Bureau of Colored Troops records, and those were verified from the Army records. I mean, that's mind-boggling that figure could be as large, and most Americans don't know it existed. So I was one of those. I was one of those that had very little knowledge of it, and I got a taste of it by watching the movie Glory, and then another taste of it by visiting the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., about 10 years ago. And then it kind of piqued my interest, and then I was invited to come on down to the reenactment of the Battle of the Wilderness in 2014, the 150th anniversary, and I was in awe that morning and the next morning, and I have been excited about it ever since, because I'm surprised that I didn't know as much as I didn't know as much about the African American contribution. So I've made it my personal goal to find out as much as I can, and I learn more every week.
Boy, and that's really what, more than any reenactment group that I can think of, you all really are educating all of us, and sounds like educating yourselves.
Yes, it's definitely a dual mission, but there's a large portion of America that still has no idea that there was anything other than the 54th Massachusetts in black involvement in the Civil War. But in addition to the Army, the 209,000, there were 1/4 of the Navy at the time was African American, which again we didn't realize.
That's the first time I've heard that. Stuart, for you, the whole 23rd, I mean, because you've got a National Park Service background, and just the fact that you've been able to do this with the 23rd, it's got to be really satisfying for you.
Oh yes, it is, and that's why I'm glad to bring on Dr. Bryant, because when I first got to the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park, the only information on African American history was actually written by Dr. Bryant. Now, I know John Hennessy had done a lot of speaking, but when we looked in the African American history folders, all of the information was done by Dr. Bryant. So when I got to the park, several people, including Eric Mink and Noel Harrison and Frank O'Reilly, and Greg Mertz all told me about the 23rd USCT. And in fact, Greg Mertz was the first person that drove me by the spot where they actually fought. So with the park, it became a pretty big item. And Dr. Bryant, who used to be a ranger at the park, I think for 9 years, he was the one that started a lot of the research. So when I went to Eric Mink to get with the park head on the 23rd, he referred me to Dr. Bryant. And I met Dr. Bryant in 2009 at Chatham when Stafford County had a Trail to Freedom program. And Dr. Bryant was one of the keynote speakers. And since that time, when we started the 2011, that's when we started the 23rd at John J Wright Museum, I contacted Dr. Bryant. And since then, we've been on several programs with him. And he was the keynote speaker for our May 17, 2014 150th anniversary. So Dr. Bryant has also written books about the United States Colored Troops. The 36th USCT Regiment History and Roster was written by him, I think, in 2012. And during the sesquicentennial, he wrote the sesquicentennial editions of the Battle of Fredericksburg and the Battle of Chancellorsville.
And that's Dr. James Bryant, right?
Dr. James K. Bryant II, right.
So this is a big event on Saturday and worth people checking out.
Oh, yes. I mean, just to hear Dr. Bryant and then see the film that Luigi made. I mean, we were really proud of the film. And to tell you, let's see, many of the members of the 23rd, some of the members of the 54th Mass Company B, the 1st USCT, and Women of the Civil War, and the Ladies of Freed. That's a women's organization from the African American Civil War Museum, and they are direct descendants from the United States Colored Troops. So all of us participated in the program along with the USCT Living History Association. So that was a big deal at the time, and hopefully this event is going to be a big event for us.
Ted, this particular segment where we are involved in telling this untold story, it has such a positive impact on the history of our nation, and for that chapter to have been left out, it was unfair. So we're trying to tell the untold story. Many people will take a sense of pride if they realize just how important the role of the African American soldier was during the Civil War.
And I have to say, too, that during Black History Month, Reverend Turner and myself, we will go out to schools, libraries, and churches, and we tell the story of the 23rd. And sometimes we get invited other places. Like this year, I was invited to a law firm in Washington, D.C. that was right across the street from the White House. And I got to tell the story of the 23rd there as well.
Well, as president, I guess, I mean, nothing but good things, I would think, ahead. And just what you're able to do, just teaching all of us, this is great stuff.
Well, I think we're motivated by sincere interest in delivering that message. But it comes with challenges. You know, it's work. And it involves 2 to 3 weekends a month and the speaking engagements and throughout the week. So it's a labor of love, I guess, and as it is with most teaching evolutions. You do it because you really have that in your heart and you want to deliver the message, at least deliver the accurate message. I wish I could say that we had thousands and thousands on our rolls to fan out across the nation and spread that word, but our numbers are moderate. If you look at the U.S. Colored Troops Living History Association, that spreads over a number of states. The numbers are a little bit larger, but still the mission is it could be overwhelming, except that you do it because you really are interested in delivering that message and righting what is probably a very serious wrong. The fact that much of the history was omitted or deleted. So we'll continue to fight. We'll stay in this as long as we can, as long as there are a few of us who are willing to go out and speak or to represent the contribution of African Americans to the victory during the Civil War. And that's one of the things that may be overlooked, because you look at what was happening in 1863 and heading on into 1864, as the Union was looking for a source of renewed manpower. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden there was this force of 200,000 more, which kind of tipped the balance so that Robert E. Lee was unable to continue to fight.
The truth be told, we were the winners. We contributed to the fact that the victory took place. And I count it a blessing to be able to go out as we participate in parades, as we participate in even telling the being living historians, telling the story, and also sometimes little involvement in the reenactment part. As a Vietnam veteran, I don't really enjoy going out there bivouacking, and at my age, that's not something that I cater to and have such a great interest, but I do want to tell the story, so I'm willing to play the role of the living historian and get as much of it out there as I possibly can to help broaden the scope of understanding of just the plight of the African American in the country.
And then in telling that story and adding on to what both Hashmel and Ed said, at the end of the Civil War, the U.S. colored troops were 10% of the whole Union Army. And in fact, after the war, the 25th Corps, which is all African Americans, are sent to Texas with General Sheridan to stop the French from trying to invade Texas. So there is quite a story for the U.S. colored troops. And then some of those U.S. colored troops in Texas actually stay there, and then they become the Buffalo Soldiers. So the USCT story is a long story to be told.
And there's a couple of things that I want to make mention of. You said something about the marker that we have out in Spotsylvania that was erected to honor the 23rd, and also the display out at Chancellorsville Business Center, but also at Spotsylvania Courthouse, right there in the government building. They have a mural that they have put together, and the 23rd is one of the pictures that's on that mural down at Spotsylvania. So we're excited to have been able to be a part of the different celebrations in Stafford County when they had that 350th anniversary celebration. Also Spotsylvania when they did the sesquicentennial, the Battle of the Wilderness. We've been there. And also here in Fredericksburg, we're honored to be involved in the Memorial Day event annually that takes place at the National Park Service here in Fredericksburg.
And you were the speaker last year.
And I was the speaker last year.
Stuart, if someone wants to find out more and get in touch with you and you all and find out more and maybe have you come and speak to them, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, the best way to get a hold of me is to email me at hendersonsty@msn.com. Or they can call the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park and just leave a message for me.
Or they can go to our Facebook page and leave a message there, and we will sure enough get it back with them.